Hello everyone, Para here from Paradox Brothers YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be doing a deck profile for you. This deck is going to be my cat control deck. If you're not familiar with what cat control is, the first time that I saw it was from a player that goes by the handle online, the Nano. It's a pretty known player if you play Goat Format online at all. And if you go to the goatformat.com website, you'll see a profile for a couple profiles probably at this point for cat control decks. And but yeah, this is going to be my take on it. So we'll go ahead and get into it. It is a control deck, so we will be having access to the fusion deck, and we'll be using predominantly Thousand Eyes Restrict, but also you can use anything else that are meta targets. So, and we're going to be using Scapegoat. So, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the monsters first. So, to start with, it is a cat deck, so we are going to be playing the 3 Rescue Cat. If you're not familiar with this card at all, there's a video on our channel that's titled Understanding Rescue Cat, or Understanding Cat. I can't remember what we titled it, but you can go check in our video list and find it there and understand cat a little bit better. There's many versions of cat decks you can make. This is just going to be the control one, which was the first time I have really started kind of playing a control cat base deck. And I like, honestly, probably my favorite variant out of all the ones that are out there at this time, because I do tend to be more of a control player myself. But in case you're not familiar with this card, essentially you tribute this card to special summon 2 level 3 or lower beast monsters. They don't have to be any particular attribute. They could be any attribute. They just have to be level 3 and be beasts. And you special summon it to the field, and at the end of that turn, they go to the graveyard. So, for our targets, we're going to be playing, since this is the control version, we're playing the Wicked Worm Beast at 3. This card functions very similar to a spirit monster like Tsukiyomi, Susu Soldier, or Azura Priest, in the sense that it goes back to your hand at the end of the turn. But unlike them, it can be special summon. It's level 3, it's 1400 attack. It's very useful because it kind of has built-in protection constantly going to your hand. You have discard fodder in your hand for discard traps and Graceful Charity and protection against Duo. Getting 2 of these out, at least the way I like to play this deck, if I draw a Rescue Cat my first turn, I will try to get the Wicked Worm Beast out of the deck as fast as possible. It thins the deck, puts them in your hand, allows you to use them for discard stuff, makes Duo weaker and Charity stronger. So I'll often, even if I'm going first, just play a Rescue Cat to get these in my hand. Moving on, play the just 1 Panda. I think Panda is a really good target. Yeah, and you can have more in the side deck if you're going against a control deck that plays goats. But in this particular version of the deck, I wanted 6 targets, which is what I'll end up having. You'll see that in a second. And this is this made the most sense to me. I really like Panda in a lot of situations. It can actually out a lot of cards in certain situations, especially if your opponent has a bunch of goats. You could do a bunch of damage. So definitely worth being one of the 6 targets in here. For the last 2 targets, I play 2 Duskwalla. This card, if you're not familiar with it, is often in burn decks because it does have a burn effect. It does 400 life points of damage to your opponent for each card in their hand, and it is a flip effect monster. And 3-star, 1100 attack, but it has 1800 defense, which is very strong. But the reason why I play it is because it is a dark monster, so we actually have access to dark beast monsters off of Rescue Cat, which is really nice. Because, as you all know, there's a very easy way to get light monsters in the deck, and that is playing 3 Thunder Dragons. Clearly, you just discard this card, and you get two Thunder Dragons from the deck, and you can always discard this to fail to find if you need a light in a pinch in the graveyard to summon a Chaos monster. Speaking of which, I play 1 Blackluster Soldier and 1 Chaos Sorcerer. Out of a lot of the list I've seen, only 1 played Blackluster Soldier, and none that I saw played Chaos Sorcerer. It doesn't mean that there aren't some out there, but I think my logic behind this is I feel like Chaos Sorcerer is quite live. I mean, in the testing of this, it's very rare where I didn't have lights and darks in my grave, despite the fact that my light and dark count is pretty low because of just the Rescue Cat engine. Searching at the Wicked War and Beast, thinning the deck out, Thunder Dragon engine, thinning the deck out. I mean, I get to my lights and darks pretty quickly. But, yeah, so moving on, I play one Magician of Faith, just a really powerful card. You get back a really strong spell, 1 star, so you can utilize Metamorphosis and get Thousand Eyes of Strength that way as well. And then for the last 3 monsters, 1 Sangan, which is included in most control decks, 1 Tribe-Infecting Virus, and 1 Sinister Serpent. So just 3 really good cards. Moving on to the traps here, and probably one of the best trap cards in the game, 3 Solemn Judgment. You don't necessarily have to play 3, but I like playing 3 in this deck. It's one of the best control cards. It's also one of the most difficult cards to use, but don't shy away from using this. You might start using it at first and have somewhat poor results, or maybe not as good results as what you might want, but at some point you're going to acquire the awareness of when to use this and when not to use this. But I do think this is one of the most powerful cards in this game. So if you're playing traps and you have room for Solemn Judgment, it's always a good inclusion. Play 3 Regeki Break. Playing so many discard traps because we have the Thunder Dragons, we also have the Sinister Serpent, and we have the Wicked War and Beast. So we have lots of discard fodder in our hands at any given time. These are almost always live. You rarely have to discard cards you don't want to. Of course, you could always discard a dark if you need to, but with the cat summoning Duskwalla and the Duskwalla going to the grave by default at the end of the turn, you often have darks in your grave anyway. For the last 3 traps, I play Ring of Destruction, Mirror Force, and Spiritual Tribute. Just really good trap cards. If you don't play Rural Decree, you probably play these 3 most of the time. For the spells, Delinquent Duo, Pot of Greed, and Graceful Charity, obvious cards. For the control side, 2 Metamorphosis and 2 Scapegoat. I like this particular ratio myself because you could always have 1 Metamorphosis and 1 Scapegoat on the side if you're playing against Warriors or you're playing against like an OTK type deck. We do run a lot of monsters, so we have, we do need Scapegoats in this deck because oftentimes we'll end with an empty board because we have Wicked War and Beast, which goes back to our hand, and anything summoned from Cat goes to the grave. So there's lots of times in which you do have like an open board as far as the monsters are concerned. So having Scapegoat set really helps you with that, and you can kind of dictate the pace of the game a lot better. You can also tribute over your Thousand Eyes of Strix with your Thunder Dragons, so you're not like stalling the game out. Most of the time your opponent will get rid of Thousand Eyes of Strix for you, and that's another dark in the grave. With the control package, I also play 1 creature swap. I play another creature swap in the side deck when I play online. I think 1 creature swap is great because you have the Wicked War and Beast, which kind of function the same way as a spirit monster, so you can trade your Wicked War and Beast with your opponent's monster, and when you end your turn, the Wicked War and Beast will come back to your hand. You can also trade a Scapegoat, but if you do play this and they're playing Scapegoat, it is just not good at all. So I only play 1 and the main deck at this point. So I play 2 Noble and a Crossout. Just Chaos Turbo is the most common deck, and this is a very good card against it. If this were at 3, then Chaos Turbo would certainly be a considerably less powerful deck, and they'd probably play a lot more Big Shield Guardian and things like that. Play 1 Snatch Steal, 1 Premature Burial, just really good spell cards. And for the final spell card, I play 1 Heavy Storm. I don't play a Mystical Space Typhoon in this build because there are 3 Regeki Break, and even though back row is somewhat common, Warrior is the most common, commonly uses the highest amount of back row cards, and just very few people are playing them. I just feel like Mystical Space Typhoon is not really necessary in the main in this version if you have Regeki Break. If I, say, played Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, which you certainly could, and honestly I think it's better to play that if you're playing against a highly or a demographic that's mostly playing Chaos Turbo decks because it's just really good against that deck in particular. If you were playing Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, then I would play Mystical Space Typhoon in the main deck. But because getting rid of Snatch Steal with a Wing Blast is terrible, and you know, Mystical Space Typhoon kind of mitigates some of that if you have it at the right time. So the only special notes I would say with this before I end the video, some tips on how I like to play, kind of how I said earlier. You know, you want to get, we have 3 cats, we have 6 targets, at least in my build. I personally like to get out all my targets as fast as I can because they all serve a purpose, and unlike in most cat decks, that purpose isn't necessarily taking your opponent's life points down to 0 as fast as possible, although you can certainly get in a lot of chip damage if you have an open board. And a lot of times people won't want to like burn a Mirror Force on just the cards that go to the graveyard anyway, so a lot of times you get chip damage anyway. And Thousand Eyes are strict, and allows you to grind out for a lot longer, and the 2 chaos monsters versus the 1, or most of the time honestly none, allow you to have a much better end game versus just like hoping that you get enough chip damage and win, or playing some burn cards to help you win. Personally, I didn't want to play any burn cards in this deck really outside of the Dead Wombats, which does actually come up quite often because Chaos Turbo has usually, you know, most of the time like 4 cards in their hand at any given time. So they're going to be taking 1,600 life points, maybe more depending on how many cards they have. And it can be really good. And 1,800 defense is very solid. It can defend you for quite some time. So anyway, I've had a lot of fun building this deck and playing this deck. Give it a try. Obviously, make your own modifications, try your own builds, and hopefully we just can keep progressing GOAT format in a fun, positive way. So thanks for watching the video, and have a great day.